Hi everyone, welcome to the 25th webinar in 12D's Industry Solutions webinar series. My name is Lisa Stewart and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator at 12D Solutions. Our Industry Solutions webinars are designed to provide insights into overcoming challenges in an evolving industry in more effective and efficient ways. We'll keep running these webinars regularly and recording them for posting on our YouTube channel with links through our website. Our first 24 webinars from this Industry Solutions series, as well as 24 webinars from our training series, are available online if you missed those. During this live presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way. We'll post some instructions on the screen. We'll answer as many of those as possible throughout the webinar, and at the end, I'll read out some of your questions to the presenter if there's time. Today's webinar about Abtrac will be presented by Edward O'Leary, the CEO and co-founder of Abtrac. With a background as an IT consultant at Ernst & Young, Edward specialized in the application of technology solutions for senior management for large corporates and SMEs. His own business went through several stages of development as he listened and responded to his clients' needs. Edward sees his role as CEO as being to manage and adapt Abtrac to suit ever-evolving business needs, and at the same time to ensure Abtrac delivers and is capable of working with the range of continually evolving business technologies. In this webinar, he'll take you through Abtrac time management and invoicing software, which has a connector in 12D Synergy. The connector API allows you to connect 12D Synergy to Abtrac to synchronize data from Abtrac to 12D Synergy. Connectors automatically import information stored in other products, preventing double entry, saving time, and reducing errors. A wide range of data can be imported from Abtrac to 12D, including jobs, tasks, or stages or phases, files, folders, client and supplier companies, contacts, staff, notes, and custom fields. Over to you, Edward.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, and thank you to 12D for giving me this opportunity to explain Abtrac to you. As Lisa said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Abtrac. Abtrac is a time billing system. It's entirely cloud-based, and we've got users throughout the world, but primarily in Australia and New Zealand. So what is Abtrac? We call it a time management and invoicing package, and so it pulls together clients, jobs, contacts, employees, and other third parties, such as subconsultants. And it's all about project planning and management internally within your business. So we've got projects and stages, of course, and associated with each stage, you can have fees, times, delivery dates. There are disbursements, and you can also manage subconsultants in an extensive and managed way. Most people have a relationship with Abtrac through the time and disbursement recording screens, and at the back end of it there's extensive reporting by office, reporting by department, by work type, by project of course, and by employee. Abtrac also has an invoicing module, and from the invoicing module, in addition to APIs to packages such as 12D Synergy, we have APIs to MYOB, Xero, QuickBooks, and most of the popular accounting packages. But the whole focus on Abtrac is not so much on accounting per se, but on how you earn your revenue. And the thesis is that it's done job by job, stage by stage within each job. If you get every one of those right, the revenue falls out at the end quite easily. Graphically speaking, this is exactly the same thing, but in an infographic. We've got jobs, the scope and client expectations, and professional obligations, including your compliance obligations on the one hand. On the other, you've got staff and others on a range of projects, and some of those projects can span years. And Abtrac pulls together those two aspects of managing your business so that you can see what has to be done when and by whom. And you can also see at what sort of cost versus recovery you're achieving for each of those projects. So Abtrac's not just about invoicing everything that's on the tab at month end. It's not just a time billing system. The whole idea is that it supports a culture of planning. That means planning your jobs, planning your people. It also supports a culture of managing, as you can see, managing budgets, managing actuals, and managing variations. Down at the micro level, it's letting people know that this is a 20-hour piece of work, so it doesn't take 30 hours. That's time management. Because, of course, if you spend 30 hours on a 20-hour piece of work, you've stolen 10 hours off the next person's job, and that means you're 10 hours behind that week at least. As professionals, all we're selling is time and expertise, and Abtrac's whole approach is to make time count. Who uses Abtrac? Well, primarily it's people in the construction and infrastructure development space, as you can see by this graphic, the left-hand side of this graphic here. We also have other people who essentially are all doing the same thing. They're selling their time and expertise, accountants, bookkeepers, PR agencies, etc. But primarily they're people around the construction and infrastructure space. And in terms of company size, we run with the proverbial one-man bands using Abtrac up to companies of 100+ staff. The 25% quartiles are 13 to 32 staff. How does Abtrac work with 12D? Well, in most companies, people will enter their data into Abtrac first, and then 12D knocks on its door periodically. You can force an update at any time, but it's set to poll periodically and looking for updates and new records within Abtrac that it automatically synchronises through to 12D. So moving now on to the Abtrac Online overview. This is Abtrac. As I said, it's entirely cloud-based, so all you need is a web-capable device and you can run it. Most people use PCs or Macs, but you can run it on your Apple iPad or your Galaxy Tab before it bursts into flames, and of course you can run it on smaller phones. What I'll do in this webinar is I'll spend a bit of time looking at clients and jobs. I'll spend a bit of time looking at timesheet entry, a bit of time looking at reports, and then I'll finish looking at some invoicing and then back to some reports. So just clicking on the search screen, as I have done, here we are here. In most companies, people set themselves up as an entity because they want to record sick leave, annual leave, professional development, and all the non-chargeable time that people spend their time on in an average week. You can also set up third parties. I've got one here. We can see that there's no project code for them. That's because we don't work for them. They work for us as sub-consultants. So I can set up this sub-consultant and then assign them to various other projects for all the other client jobs I have on hand. I'll go and look at one particular client here. Just type in a piece of their name. A lot of Abtrac's got these grids, and there's a couple of things you need to know about them, or you can find out. One of them is that the administrator can control the columns that people see in the grid and also the order in which they appear. The second thing is that across the top of every grid, I can choose various filters and thereby restrict it, for example, so that I can only see jobs from a particular office, or I can only see jobs for which I'm the project manager. Coming to look at this particular client now, all you need is the name, but different people will add different bits of detail on this page and on these other pages through to here before they enter some project detail. Over here I've got an abbreviation just so that if it's a big company name, it doesn't use up all the real estate on some printouts and some screens. And the idea of the system code, it's one way in which we can link and maintain uniqueness between the two systems. If people go and change the spelling in here, 12D can poll back and say, okay, well look, the system code was 1153, therefore I've assessed that the spelling of the name has changed. If you're in a multi-partner practice, a multi-office practice, then I can say this client is managed out of this particular office of ours, and then I can restrict people so they can only see clients and jobs from a particular office if that's what I want to do. And similarly down here I can say this client is managed by this director level or senior level person of ours, the account manager, whatever you want to call them. And if it's a big client, for example, it might be the local council, you might say in fact we have two director level people and they both do the schmoozing with the client to pull in the next project. But at the project level, there might be a different project manager for every one of those projects. A particular client can have multiple addresses through here. Bill Gates tells me I can have 10 million of them. None of our clients have got that many, but you can certainly stack up lots and lots of branch offices of this particular client. And similarly, I can stack up lots and lots of people who work at this particular client. So I've got Kevin here, he's the finance director and he's our accounts contact. I've also got Judith. She's the CEO. She's the main contact. If you're working in the residential space, you might say the client's name is Smith, Mr. and Mrs. J. So it comes under S for Smith, but I might say when I send an invoice to them, I want it to come out as the Smith Family Trust or some other completely different name through here. And a lot of engineers will do that. For example, the client might be the architect that's asked them to commission something, but they say the invoices go to the architect's clients. Now, every employee within Abtrac can have a default charge rate and a default cost rate. In fact, there's a variety of charge and cost rates that are maintained by the administrator under the administration screens. But I can also override all of those and say at the client level, I can also have employee-specific rates. And this is where you have a corporate rate for a client. So you might say we charge them a premium rate or a discount rate for whatever reason. Similarly, at the client level, I can say we have specific activity rates. So if someone's traveling, then we can say we charge a different rate if they're traveling compared to if they're on-site working or in the office doing some calculations or design of some sort. So just to refresh, that's all we need about the clients. All we need is the client name. All those other screens and pages are optional. Moving down to the projects, for this particular client, I can see I've got lots of projects up and down here. Most of them are still current. These bottom ones have been archived off. I'm demonstrating here too that you can have a smorgasbord of project code structures, and basically we say to people, if you can articulate to us how you want the project codes to look, then we can generally replicate it within Abtrac off the shelf. I'll pick the first project and just look at this. So as with the client, where all you needed was the name, with the project code, you can let Abtrac generate the next number off the rank. I can put in here, the description might be Sam to advise, and later on we can find out the details. But different clients using Abtrac use different fields here, and all of these pages are relevant to this particular project. Some people use proposal numbers, so they might say we'll enter it first of all the details we need. They can auto-sync with 12D. But at this stage, this particular project mightn't be billable because it's just a proposal. We can run it like that. When we put a tick in there, it'll update that date, and then it'll override the proposal number and put in the next project code off the rank, but it'll retain the proposal number there for your reference. Some people use these, so job status, type, team, office, department, work source, referred from. All of these are set up and maintained by the administrators. And if they're left blank, Abtrac's quite relaxed about it. But if I'm using status, for example, I can say, show me all the jobs that are not yet confirmed, and I might go and search for them in that screen that I started in earlier on, and get on the phone and find out what's happening to all those proposals we've still got outstanding, for example. Down here, I've got the project manager, different to the client manager, or they can be. And here I've got a peer reviewer. Within Abtrac, a lot of these words are variables. So if you call it jobs instead of projects, if you say we don't call it peer reviewer, we call it something else, you can change those words under the administration screens and they will show as such everywhere else. The particular project can have billing details. So you don't need to put anything into any of this screen here, but if the client gives you a purchase order number, I can enter it here. It'll then come out on invoices. They might say if you want to get paid, you also have to add to the invoices our own internal project number. We can enter it there and it'll come out. We've got a fee here. We've also got a work value here. So our fee of this $20 million development is $176,000. And some people will use that because they say, let's track projects of that size because we know we get lots of variations, for example. If it's a smaller fee, maybe it's a residential client, you might say, look, we require them to pay a deposit up front, in which case I can enter that there. And until they have paid that deposit and there's a tick in that box, as people are entering time or disbursements against it, it'll say this people hadn't paid their deposit up front, we need to do something about it. If it's a $176,000 fee, then you don't want people to burn off all that fee quicker than they should be, and so I can put a threshold here at the fee level, and typically people would let out this timesheet warning threshold like a piece of rope. So they might say, first of all, I want to know when I'm up to 20% and then 35%, etc. So you can do that here, and also down here I've set up a different billing entity different to the invoice defaults for this client, so when I raise invoices for this project it'll go to the right entity straight away. I'm more likely to get paid more quickly. I can also set up a shopping list of people who are on this particular project. So here I've got myself. I work for Abtrac. We've got someone from the client called Kevin. We've got someone from council, and if you deal with council yourselves, you might know that you could have two dozen different project managers all at council. We say on this project, this is the person we're interested in. And we've got a third party here. We've got a subconsultant of some sort, and we deal with her. And the reason people keep a shopping list of this is I can send them all an email and say, hey, there's a meeting next Thursday, can you all please attend? Or I can phone them if I want to. The fee of $176,000 would typically be made up from what we call stages. Now, just as you can change the word project to job, you might say, look, we call them phases or tasks or something else. You can change it within Abtrac. But here I've just got some quasi-generic stages for a particular project, and down the bottom I've got a couple of variations as well. So these were part of the initial quote, and then the variations have come in extra. I've also told the client that we're going to charge on an hourly rate for the concept stage, but then once we've agreed it, we'll charge fixed fee lump sum down here. You can see in addition to our own internal fees, we've got disbursements and we've got some sub-consultants. And they all together make up the fee, and I can track every one of them to see how I'm going as the job progresses. So that you get a commonality of naming across all projects, a lot of people, when they create a new job of the same type, they'll say, look, I want to copy the stages from another project into this one. That means that everybody's calling it concept development rather than feasibility stage or preliminary design or whatever other terminology they use. You say, look, in our company, this is what we call it, and that's how you'd edit it. You don't have to type it in each time. If I've got start date, end dates, and a fee, then I can do a little cash flow forecast for this particular project. Were we to bill monthly, this is how the invoices would be coming in. I can give that to the client. And then I can get a report not only for this project, but for all projects to say, this is how we could be invoicing later on this year, September, October, November. You can have a look at it, look at the cash flow. You can also look at it and say, well, these are jobs that are confirmed, and these are jobs that are possible, but not yet confirmed. Coming right back to the job screen, I can have project-specific rates just as I can have employee-specific rates. So that's me. I normally charge $250 an hour. For the client, we had done a corporate rate of $200 an hour. For this project, we've increased it slightly, $210 an hour. So I've locked in each of those rates, and they will apply in each of those different situations as appropriate. I can also keep a track, so just fast forwarding through a couple of things. I've outlined how we relate with 12D, but I'll fast forward through the next one as well, user defined. In addition to all these other fields, you can make up your own fields. So you might say, look, we need the certificate number, if a certificate's been lodged, certificate of title or compliance certificate. You can make up your own fields here, but I'll just jump onto this one here. This is a project diary, and it saves you fossicking through bits of paper in your notebook saying, where on earth did I write that down? It saves you apologising to someone else saying, look, I meant to tell you that, I'm sorry, there's been issues with parking. People will put it into the project diary, and then they and others can look at that routinely just to be au fait with what's happening on this particular project. So I can do quite a few things within this. I can put in the date, of course, and I can also say there's a next action. I can set up a series of actions, so it might be a meeting on site or, please note or whatever. I can set up those things and then keep in touch with everyone else who's working on the project via the project diary. Finally, for a $60,000 fee, so stage one of this was something like $60,000, there we are there. What a lot of people have been doing since the global financial crisis is they're saying, it's fine knowing it's $60,000, but I need to break that down to significantly smaller pieces. So we've got these work items or action items, and I can run a report, these are due by a certain date, and make sure that they are done by that date. If it doesn't happen, then just clicking on one of them, what I can do is I can say, oh, it's a prepare a presentation for a board meeting. I can fast forward it. It was initially 60 hours to be done. I think there's now 10 hours left to do. And what I've done is I've scheduled it to individual people down here. So in doing that, I'm not only keeping on top of this particular little piece of work, but I'm also making sure that as people come into Abtrac, they can say, this is what I have been given to do this week in my planned time schedule, making it different to what the timesheet itself is showing. Finally, I can print some quasi-generic things from here. A lot of people will do their short form agreements or other standard templates by exporting data out from Abtrac and producing it as a mail merge document. And then if this job's been going for a while, I can see what's been invoiced for it through here. If I go and click on a particular invoice, if I click on this one, for example, 5078, I can have a look at that invoice, and what it's giving me is a little audit trail of what was said on the invoice. So one of the billing narratives was drawings to consent, and we billed the client $2,000, but I can see there was $2,080 on the tab. So coming back to here, I can see that across the whole invoice, we wrote off $1,480, and I can see how that was accrued by looking at the audit trail, drilling down from the invoice into the timesheets. Well, I probably spent enough time talking about the project setup itself. Depends on how often you're setting up new projects as to how much you need to use this. And of course, it depends on the size of the project as well as to how much detail you go into. I'll change hats now and look at entering time and disbursements. And within this screen here, this is where most people have their relationship with Abtrac, but administrators will also enter office disbursements. Alternately, they can import them from creditor invoices. You can import them from photocopier logs and various other devices, basically anything that you can get to through an API or a CSV. You can import it directly into Abtrac. It saves you rekeying it. But looking at time and disbursements in particular for employees, each employee can be set up with various permissions. I'm allowed to see these people in my group. Each employee can also only do anything in their timesheets until a senior person or an administrator commits the timesheet. For the purposes of demonstrations, I've left all my timesheets uncommitted. As with other screens, the administrator, when they set up Abtrac with our help, they can determine the columns that have to be entered or have to be seen along here, and they can also determine the default view. So in this particular view, we have the days along the top. We've set it up for a weekly timesheet, and we've said sort by day, which is why it's giving that sort of ripple down effect through there. Others will set up their timesheet to say, no, we want to capture, for example, start times and stop times. And so again, the administrator will set this up so that as employees log in, they get to see whatever columns they have to see. Both of them put data into and read it from exactly the same source. So it really doesn't matter. It's just the rules that you want to have followed within your office. If I go and add more time on a particular job, if I know what the job is, I can just enter it directly like that. If I don't know what it is, I can pick it from this drop-down list or from this one here. And what I'll do is I'll just put a bit of time. I'm very diligent. I did 4 hours on a Sunday. When I click away from this, it's trying to save it, and we put a tick in the project here saying you must pick a stage for this particular job. So what I'm showing here is the administrator can set up the rules that have to be complied with across the whole of Abtrac in your business. The project manager can set up additional rules to capture data according to what they want for billing purposes and project management purposes. In addition to entering time, I can also annotate that 3 hours that's been entered on a Monday. I'm just double clicking. I can add a comment, and I can also enter a disbursement. So I might say, look, I had to use my American Express card to book a hotel or something. I can enter that as an employee disbursement, and therefore that'll go against the job as a legitimate cost. And it'll also show that I have to be reimbursed for that disbursement if it's a reimbursable disbursement. If I try and move off this screen altogether now, because I've been entering data here, it will complain. So what I'll do before I move off, I'll just make sure I save that record. If I'm using this layout of a timesheet, then I wouldn't have to enter all of these jobs, details, stages, etc. every time I started a new timesheet. What a lot of people will do is they'll copy their timesheet from last week or from some other period, and it'll bring through any project that's still current. It just saves you entering a lot of the data. All you've got to do is put the numbers into here. As I said before, you can also enter office disbursements. You can forward schedule time, so it's fine knowing what happened last week and last month, but it's just as important knowing what's happening next week, next fortnight, through to the next month end, for example. I can also process sub-consultant invoices, manage sub-consultant purchase orders, and I can export the timesheet data to import it into a payroll package. We've got many of our clients doing that. The reason you're capturing all this is you want to stay on top of your projects, so I'll just have a quick look at some reports within here. Now, just a reminder, as you'd expect with a package of this sort, if you go to our website, abtrac.com.au or abtrac.co.nz, we do have a free trial that you're welcome to start with, and if you're still using it, getting benefit out of it, we can keep it going for you pretty well for as long as you like. But I'm in the screen now. I want to look at how the project is progressing. So I remember the code. I'll just type it into here. Instead of looking at it just for this particular project, I might decide I want to look at it for all of my jobs, for example, by saying, okay, well, I'm the project manager, show me everything here. I'll just tick one. We'll have a look at that. So this is showing me against the budget how I'm going. So I had put in hours estimates. It's telling me how I'm consuming the hours. More importantly, it's telling me how I'm consuming the dollars, where I'm through. And at this stage, I've made an independent assessment within the stages of the project. I've said, look, I think I'm up to 50%, but I can see, in fact, we've consumed 74% of the fee. So I need to get on that long before we get that sort of divergence. Down here, we're also getting a divergence here where I think we're only 30% of the way through this drawings to DA. I think we've consumed 42% of the fee. I'm not managing this very well, but I can find out in real time as soon as I like that I need to get on top of this a lot more quickly. Over here I can also see what the admin people, or maybe myself, what we've invoiced for this particular project down here. What I can do is I can open lots and lots of different screens. I don't need to go into it right now, but I can have lots and lots of tabs open on here. And if I've got dual screens, I can take this one for a drag, put it on the second monitor, and work on 2 or 3 monitors if I've got them. What I'll do whilst I'm in here is I'll change hats again. So moving out from project management mode, time cost entry mode, I'll say, listen, now we're moving into invoicing mode. I'll have a look through here. So what I'll do is I won't just look at that particular project. I'll look at all projects up to a certain date, and I'll see how we're going. So this is telling me all the unbilled work within Abtrac as at this particular date here. So the one that we've been playing with, looking across here, I can see that was the fee quote. That's what I billed to date. I might want to click on that invoice number and see what I did say last time. I can see there's an extra $10,000 on the tab in fees, and there's a significant disbursement as well, making a total of $32,000 outstanding. People will use this not only at month end, but they might look at it halfway through the billing period and say, look, here's a fee for $84,000. We've only done $3,000. Let's give it a big push and see how much we can get out the door by month end. Whereas this job might have stalled, for example. So look, let's go easy on this because the client's making a decision. Let's not put any more time into it. So having looked at different reports, I can decide what I want to bill. I'll show you one last report just to give you an indication of what we can do within Abtrac. I'm very sorry about the clearing throat. There you go. Looking at this report here, this is very much a stage-focused report, and you've got some options here. This is showing me for each of the stages in the initial quote and for the additional work, what's gone in and has been billed, unbilled, what the total input is, what we've billed, what the cost was quoted. So it's quite an extensive report that outlines to the project manager in particular what's happening on the project. Here's a list of all the outstanding invoices. Now here's all the unbilled time down here going through to the end of page 4. So in fact, within Abtrac, if I just close that preview, there's a huge raft of reports, and you can see I've got a small list of favorites. If you look at these 2 top reports up here, when I show all the reports, the number, the 2 reports up the top suddenly expanded out to significantly more, and that's the same up and down all of Abtrac. Any report that you can see on screen, you can also export out to Word or Excel or CSV or any other format. If you want to massage it, for example, to add it in as a supplement on your invoice, you can do that externally or within Abtrac. Now, having decided what to invoice, I'll actually show you some in here. So what I might do is I might just generate that invoice very quickly. I come in here. If you're in a multiple office situation, you might be restricted to only look at certain offices. You might be pre-billing on a project, in which case you say, don't just show me jobs that have got unbilled items on them, show me everything. But I know that the job I've got here is 0403, and I know that it has got some time on it. So I'll just type that in. What it's doing here, it's telling me this here, and I'll say, yes, I saw that on some reports earlier. That's fine. I'll generate an invoice for it. So within Abtrac, you can control your invoice considerably, and it's one reason that people invoice out of Abtrac as opposed to, for example, out of their accounting system, because the accounting systems simply don't portray the information that they need to show on a professional invoice. A lot of people also generate their invoices out of Excel, and again, they don't need to do that. They can do it out of Abtrac, and that's why people start using Abtrac. So here it's showing me the header and footer details of the invoice. If I click down here, again, it's showing me the unbilled work. And at this stage, I haven't got anything on the invoice itself because I haven't decided what I want to bill. So this is the preview here. You can control everything above here and below here, and of course through the middle as well when you go to raise your invoice. What I'll do is I'm just going to auto-generate this invoice, and I'll say, listen, include disbursements with the fees and the training within Abtrac. There's extensive training in 2 or 3 sessions, as many as you want to have. It shows you how to do invoicing, normally in this second training session after you've been up and running with Abtrac for a while. So what I've done, it's pulled everything out of the unbilled pot because the invoice is dated today and all the time and cost entries are prior to today. If I look at this invoice now, I've only got to do one last thing to finish it off. I've just got to put in some percentages here if I'm using a percentage-based invoice, or some line amounts in here, and I'll get the invoice out straight away. It can be out the door within a couple of days. Typically, people say within 2 or 3 days of month end, their billing and the billings are done, as opposed to waiting for 2 or 3 months, 2 or 3 weeks to month end. Then, of course, you're not going to see the check for another month after that. So any one of these lines, if I click on this one here, it's brought through from previous invoices, what I've previously invoiced. I'll say now I think I'm up to 75% of the way through the project, so I type in 0.75. It's worked out the difference for me. That's that line item done. If I don't want to use percentages, coming back into it, I shouldn't have closed that, should I? I can just swipe through here and type in whatever number I want, and indeed I can hide that percentage column within the invoice if you don't want to show that. Now, all the invoices that you're working on sit around in what you might call a current batch, and so that's because they're bouncing off directors' desks for approval or wherever they might be. At some stage, I can go tick, 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 tick down here. I can email them out. I can commit those invoices, and once they're committed, I can then upload them into MYOB, Xero, QuickBooks, or whatever your accounting package is. Because I'm invoicing out of Abtrac as well, I can get the full life cycle of a particular project. For example, I might be interested in looking at this one here. So fees and costs, how's each project going? If I look at it between 2 dates, I'll see what it shows me. So I get some choices down here. I'll look at it, for example, employee then project. So it's showing me for each employee how much time they put on the tab for each job, what's been billed out from the tab, and at billing time, whether they wrote on or wrote off. I'm comparing these first few columns with invoicing and their charge out rates. This one over here is compared with their cost rates, and you know the reality is sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose. People might run this periodically, monthly for example, around employee review time. I can look at exactly the same report from the project perspective. So it's all the same data. It goes into Abtrac. If I pick this one here, a building in Sydney, I can see what hours people have put in, what we billed, whether we won or lost. So there's an extensive reporting suite within Abtrac, as I alluded to before, and people use them according to what their role is within the office. If they're an office manager, practice manager, that's different to being a project manager, where in fact they might be restricted so that their name's permanently locked in there and they can only look at reports for which they are the project manager. Just imagine if for every nominal $100 in fees, your firm was only recovering $74 on average. If you could improve that by 10%, then your revenue would increase by nearly 14% at no extra cost. And if you could reduce those write-offs to zero, then your revenue would increase by 35% at no extra cost, and that is significant. And here's some facts. There was a survey done out of Perth, and since then, various master's students, various universities, various professional groups have repeated the survey, and they all find about the same thing. In Australia and New Zealand, on average, professional services firms are writing off 26% of their billable time. That's average. And it wasn't just any old professional services firm, it was architects, engineers, architectural designers, in the construction and infrastructure development space. And here's another fact. On average, Abtrac firms report that they increase their profits by 25%. So they're still not reducing those write-offs by the full 35%, but they're showing significant profit simply because Abtrac is helping them keep on at top of every job, job by job, stage by stage. Here's some real stories about real businesses. Engineering consultants in Brisbane, they've actually referred us to about 7 other clients in Brisbane. I'm going to be up there next week and I'm going to see them. They increased their invoicing by $1 million in the first year without more staff. That's because on average, they were writing off 34 hours per employee per month. And they simply nipped that in the bud and it came back real fast right into the director's pockets. Here you go, architects in Sydney, 58 staff, they erased an overdraft of some significant size within a couple of months. And you can see just below them an architectural practice in Sydney, in Melbourne at the other end of the market. From startup, they've never had an admin person. They said, we don't need an admin person, we can do it ourselves. A big land survey practice in Auckland, Abtrac and 12D, it supports a process and a structure so the business runs without the owners being hands-on. They know they can hand it over to other people and things are being done properly. And back in Sydney, a designer with six staff, they did increase their profits by 25% by being write-offs and extras. And the guy was amazed. And I said, can I put that on our website? And he said, no way, I don't want you to name me on that website, because he was slightly embarrassed about it, but he was also over the moon. So perhaps it's jingoistic, but we say to our clients, look, Abtrac honestly helps you make more money. It doesn't cost. So that's Abtrac in a nutshell. Why buy Abtrac or why sign up to it and 12D? It's a cloud management, time management. It's a cloud-based time management and invoicing system. It's for professionals who need effective real-time job management, and coupled with 12D synergy, you benefit. You enter the data once and it's available for everyone in both systems. And so effectively you've got one conceptual system within your business. So thanks again to all of you who are attending, and thanks again to 12D for letting me show you this quick round-the-block drive in Abtrac. I'll hand you back to Lisa now.
Thanks, Edward. I'll just take one of these questions live. Andrew in Victoria has asked, how does Abtrac handle project quotes and proposals?
The answer is it handles it quite easily. You can set up any project as not yet billable, or indeed not yet current. You can still put time against it if it's not billable as a proposal, and then when it becomes a live job, you can decide to either write off that acquisition time or alternately try and recover it throughout the rest of the project. So the answer is it does handle it in a variety of ways and quite easily.
Wonderful. Thanks everyone for your questions, and thank you very much, Edward, for your presentation. The recording of this webinar will be available in coming days through our website and our YouTube channels. Our next Industry Solutions webinar will be another great 12D Synergy related topic, File Replication Server, presented by our very own Richard Stollier at the end of June. We've also got some great training topics coming up in between, so do keep an eye on our emails and social media channels. If you need to contact us in the meantime, we'll pop up a slide showing our contact details, or you can always go to our 12D websites. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.